2023, noting the time and 7 o'clock and the presence of a quorum, I call the select board meeting to order. I'm going to call attendance right now. Les?
Present. Fox present.
Wes?
Present.
And John? John is not here yet, I guess. So
You just texted me asking for the meeting ID and password. I'm typing it into him right now.
okay. All right. Well, we can go on with the announcements, and by that time, John will be here. Okay. The Public Celebrations and Ceremonies Committee and the Personnel Board are looking for members. If you are interested, you may find the resident interest form under the quick links on our homepage of www.boxborough-ma.gov. New career opportunity, full-time administrative assistant position for DPW and fire. See the front page of the town's website for more information. Boxborough Minutemen Company welcomes new members January 21. The Boxborough Company of Minutemen is looking for some good men and women. The company is holding its annual wine and cheese party for current members and prospective new members on Saturday, January 21 at 7:30 p.m. For information, please contact Captain Tony Newton at captain@boxboroughminutemen.org or call 617-448-5931. Both old and new residents of the town are welcome to come and make new connections with others in town. For more information, visit www.boxboroughminutemen.org. Message from the Assessor's Office. Quarter 3 and 4 real estate tax bills were mailed. Quarter 3 tax bill is due at the Collector's Office by February 1, 2023. All personal exemptions submitted to the Assessor's Office have either been granted or denied, and a certificate will be mailed to the applicant. If you are a recipient, it is suggested to call the Collector's Office for your new Q3 tax bill amount. The personal property form of lists will be mailed on or around January 3, 2022. They are due back to the Assessor's Office by March 1, 2023. If you have a concern about an item that is not listed on the agenda, please raise it during concerns. If you have a question or comment about an item that is on the agenda, you will be recognized after the board members have had an opportunity to get their questions answered. Due to time constraints, the board may not be able to accommodate comments from all residents on all topics. Please wait to be recognized by the chair before addressing the board. This is a forum for public input, questions, and criticisms. However, we ask that all participants be respectful and civil. If a community member displays behavior repeatedly that is inappropriate or who does not respect the chair's rights per Massachusetts general law to ask someone to stop speaking at any point, they will be muted for this meeting and the chair may not call on them in the future. We thank you for your understanding. Okay, now on to the agenda. The first thing we have is the approval of the regular session minutes of 11/28/22, 12/12/22, and 12/21/22. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of those dates? A second?
No, second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, then let's vote. Les?
Fox eye.
Wes?
Okay.
John?
It's not here yet.
Okay, Lepari, aye. And we'll mark John as absent for the moment. Okay. Then we move on to community concerns. Are there any community concerns? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. So what I'd like to do is, since we're early in the meeting here, I'd like to move to 5D, which is the action regarding the FY23 State 911 Department Support and Incentive Grant. Since Chief Shefchik is here and available to present, then he can stay in the meeting if he likes or have a little earlier evening. So Chief, are you available?
Great. Thank you, Chair Lepari. Thank you to the entire Select Board for having me here today. This is a grant that was, we got our award letter December 22nd for $28,985. It's a the 911 grant for support and incentive, pretty much payroll for, again, $28,985. It's for the current fiscal year we're in. So this needs to be spent before June 30th of 2023. And Sergeant Balick did a lot of work on this grant. And again, it was we were given the award letter on December 22nd. So I'm here to answer any questions and urge you to support the acceptance of this grant.
I think it's fantastic. It's a great job for the sergeant as well to have gotten that through.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move to accept the fiscal year 2023 State 911 Department Support and Incentive Grant in the amount of $28,985 and no cents for the purposes stated therein. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second,
Do I have any discussion or comments from the board?
I think it's great that we got this. Thank you so much.
And thank you, John. You were the one who brought up, we had to get, there was one other piece of paperwork that we had to get over the last few weeks. And I think you were the one who actually reached out. So thank you very much for keeping an eye on this as well.
You're welcome.
Right. Do I have any comments from the community? Any public comment? Okay, so let's vote. Les?
Fox eye.
Wes?
Folks,
John?
Markowitz, aye.
And Lepari, aye. Thank you very much, Chief. As I said, you're welcome to stay or have an earlier evening. Thank you.
Stick around for a bit. Thank you.
Okay, Les, are the people from Littleton here, or shall I move on to another item on the agenda?
I see a lot of familiar faces. I don't think I've spotted Corey or Nick just yet.
Okay, well then why don't we go on to 5B, which is the discussion regarding select board warrant articles. We put this on the agenda because we wanted to make sure that we weren't missing anything. So if anyone has any additional warrant articles that they want to propose tonight and they feel that they're comfortable, we can close the warrant later this evening. If not, we can always keep it open. You know, I prefer not doing that, but we could do it. So Wes, you have a comment on this?
I do. I have a few things actually. So I don't know the earmark for it. So one of them we had potentially been discussing the IMA with the school for technical support or first line triage for support. That would be a potential warrant article, which we would either pass over if it does not come to fruition or vote on it or bring it forward. One of the other ones, and I think is the potential for a transition to the cloud based on security and management needs for the insurance, among other things. And then a third one that I wanted to propose was potentially a cable services one. Right now, and I've said this several times, that the needs, or I guess the desires of some members of the community for us to record more is going to impact our contract and or other stuff with BXB-TV. And so additionally, our revenues are based on the number of cable subscribers. And as those continue to diminish, the revenues were not necessarily going to match the requested or needed expenditures for keeping hardware, software, and also paying for the storage and other stuff. And so I didn't know if we wanted to put this as like an earmark one where we potentially pass over it or withdraw it from the warrant later. But just briefly, I would say that we would want to look to see if the current year's expected cable funds will cover the expected expenses for this year. And if we don't put it on this year, I do think in the near future, or the next year or two, we will be needing a specific warrant article for that. Because if people, additionally, Kirby has said many times, and I saw it, but the state legislature is looking at a unfunded mandate, or currently proposed unfunded to record all public meetings and make them available to the public. And so that would be something outside of the what we're able to handle just because of the storage of the video, the making it accessible and actually recording as well. So those are the three warrant items that I had, but also I know that in the past we have had extra pages, and so we've done some interesting things or advertising because this does get sent out to every address in town. And one of the things that I thought that maybe we should or could or should or you're just proposing it is to use a page to alert people that the assessments for properties are getting done over the next 2 to 3 years to stay in compliance with the state regulation. And this is good and bad for people. The good news is the tax rate goes down. However, the bad news is that their property values are likely to increase somewhat drastically if they have not sold their house within the last 3 to 4 years. And so just kind of using that as a forum to say like, hey guys, just a heads up, like, I don't really know without like, it's a way to send it out to everybody that's a registered voter without creating a whole separate mailing or putting it in the next tax bill or something like that. Because I know we saw it because we're moving to semi-annually tax notices because I just saw that in the current one. But the warrant also goes to the people, and so some of the renters might not actually. I don't know if the renters care or whatever, but yeah, just those are my two thoughts.
So before we move on to John, Mike, could you answer if these articles that Wes is talking about, if they're already on your list for
They
proposal?
are. All three of those are.
They are. Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, John.
Okay, so my question is, when I looked at the list of warrant articles, there was at one point a warrant article for a police cruiser. And I'm wondering if we're going to keep that because after our discussion on Saturday, I really do think that we should have the warrant article to discuss the police cruiser, to present it to the public. It can be in a consent agenda, but I think it's important for the public to understand that it's there. There's going to be a purchase.
Mhm.
I think it provides complete transparency to the public about where their tax dollars are being spent. If we do it as a warrant article, the money will be available until it's spent. And if it doesn't, because if it's in the operating budget and we don't spend it in the fiscal year, the money is lost. And then we have to go back and ask for that money again in the next operating budget or the next warrant, possibly at special town meeting.
So John, I don't really want to debate the merits of the warrant article. I
All
just
right,
want
then
to
I would just like that
put
to
it in
be
as
put
a
in there.
placeholder.
Right.
I think that's, I'm not sure, is it currently in the warrant list right now?
I added it to the list today when I got it by email.
Okay.
Okay, so if it's currently in the list, it can stay there and then we can have a further discussion about this when we discuss warrant articles. Do
Okay.
board members want to make any more comments at this point? Okay, Maria, you have a comment?
I do. Thank you, Diana. I just, after the discussion on Saturday, at Budget Saturday, it is on our agenda to discuss, but I'd like to once again remind the select board that we have a policy around how we budget for ongoing yearly expenses, and that includes the cruiser, that just like we talked about. So the finance committee may keep it in the budget. So then we may end up with two things, and we'll have that discussion on the 17th when we meet. I believe it's the 17th or is our next meeting, and we'll go from there. But unless we change our policy, I believe we're probably going to recommend it stays in the budget. So we can discuss it. I just want to let you know that that's where we're going to go with it.
John?
My hand should go down.
Okay. All right. So are there any further discussions regarding warrant articles? No. So I guess we're good at this point. We'll go through the meeting, and at the end, we can make a motion to close the warrant if everyone feels satisfied, unless you think of something between now and then that you'd like to add in there. Okay, Les, do we have people from Littleton Water?
We do. We have Corey Godfrey, who is visible on my screen, and we have quite a few folks from DEP and other parts of the enterprise that are here to participate.
Okay, well then, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is really an update and briefing for the benefit of the Select Board. This is actually one in a series of conversations we've been having for a while now about what I sometimes call the Western water issue. The most recent one that you may remember was actually in, I think, June of this last year, which resulted in a recommendation that was actually a presentation by the Water Resources Committee outlining the problems and recommending that the board express support for continuing to investigate the feasibility study that Littleton Water was undertaking to address means of bringing in quality and good drinking water to the western part of town. When I say the western part of town, I mean specifically and primarily the Swanson and Common Hill Road areas, which have three large condominium complexes there, but there are also a number of businesses as a daycare center and a few other things. So there has been a lot of investigation over the past few years, but there's kind of a watershed moment here that I thought it would be important for us to update you on. And I won't take the time right now to go over everybody who's here, because one thing is the screen has now been supplanted by my slide. I can't refresh my memory of everyone who's here, but I know that there are folks here that I am very familiar with from DEP. Mass DOT is here. Mass DOT, by the way, has a person, Laureen Polland, who's on the call. She is responsible for the salt remediation program for the Commonwealth for Mass DOT, and she's been looking at the salt contamination issue in a number of areas, including Boxborough. And in fact, DOT is providing some funds to help do the feasibility studies that are currently underway. We have members from DEP. Marielle Stone is here. Mary Jude Pixley is here. Bob Boswick. Bob is in charge of the drinking water program. And we have good representation from the members who regularly get together and talk about this. And so we wanted to kind of update you on this. And of course, we have Corey Godfrey from the Littleton Water Department. Corey is the Water and Sewer Superintendent for Littleton Electric Light and Water Department. You may remember meeting Corey earlier along with the General Manager, Nick Lawler. So I don't want to do a lot of talking. I just want to give a few slides, an overview of kind of where things stand now, how we got here, and what the current state is, and let the bulk of the meeting be an opportunity for people to ask questions and get updated on where we are. And before we get into that, and so that I don't forget to say it at the end, this is a briefing primarily for the board to get knowledgeable about the current state, because we are going to be having conversations about what next steps we want to take to respond to some of the needs. There will also be a public presentation, and this is a public meeting, but an outreach, I should say, to the condominium owners along Codman and Swanson Hill Roads. In fact, we're preparing a targeted mailing list to all of the listed owners of those condominium properties, as well as water system operators for the commercial properties along that area, and telling them about a meeting, a discussion, or a webinar really that we'll have on the 19th of January, that some of the same material that we'll go over tonight will be presented, but also some much more in-depth detail around things of interest to the owners, such as betterments and how all that would work. So this is a step one, and then there's going to be a step two, and there will be lots of follow-up action, I think, needed and desirable on both the select board side for Boxborough, as well as the select board side for Littleton. So Rajan is helping me by driving the slide so that I don't get confused. So Rajan, if you want to move into the next slide here, we can take a shot at it. Great. So just to refresh your memory, some of this was seen back in the June presentation, but we're talking about 1,100 residents that live in the condominiums on the western edge of Boxborough. And this represents about 20% of the town by population, according to the most current census data. This area is an environmental justice community. Actually, it turns out that quite a large part of Boxborough is an environmental justice community. However, this is a particularly notable one because the median household income here is well below the townwide average, which is important for trying to understand the best and fairest way to address the problems we're going to be hearing about. And the residents in this area, as well as the people who utilize the businesses that are located there, they're consuming water with PFAS in them. PFAS is a relatively newcomer to the rather long history of water quality problems in that part of town, but the PFAS levels exceed the state standards for PFAS in that part of town, and has been the case for a long time. Sodium and chloride levels also exceed drinking water standards and guidelines, and there are definitely not only health consequences for that, but also serious issues related to plumbing and infrastructure. All of these systems or units are served by small water systems that are operated by either homeowners association or the property owners. Boxborough, as you know, has no public water supply, so this is something that is part of the problem set we're trying to address. So Rajan, if you want to move it along. So what are the options for bringing in clean water here? This problem was studied, by the way, by WPI. It was a study that was commissioned by DEP, and they made a wonderful presentation to a number of folks in Boxborough several years ago. One option is that each homeowners association or business could install and maintain their own water treatment systems to clean their well water. But in this case, the condominiums have a rather unique opportunity to connect to the town of Littleton's public water system. Several things have happened recently that kind of make this a confluence of fortunate events. One is that as a result of the development of the old digital property on Taylor Road that now is an Amazon property, the town of Littleton acquired a piece of land on Taylor Road that had a well on it, and they have since investigated that well and found that it's very productive. It's capable of supplying a lot of water to both towns, it turns out. So one thing that's kind of new and important to understand is that there's more water available to solve this problem. And if this well was developed and brought into play to serve the community at large, Littleton would source water from a new well that's currently in plan to be developed. It's on Taylor Street in Littleton, and it would pipe the water to their new treatment plant, which is in Littleton on Whitcomb Avenue. That clean water would then travel 4.5 miles through new water mains, which would need to be installed and be delivered to end users in Boxborough. The homeowners association, by taking advantage of water that's available from Littleton Water that way, would then avoid some significant costs and risks of developing and operating separate small systems. As part of what needs to happen to make all this come together, the town of Boxborough and Littleton will at some point need to enter into an intermunicipal agreement to decide how we're going to do this, how the parts all fit together, how is the money flows, and a number of other things in terms of ongoing management. So this is a step in the direction of eventually trying to see if we can get to that stage. Why don't we have the next slide? As I said, this is a very interesting time. Not only has Littleton come into acquisition, if you will, or finding itself the owner of a very nice well that could be used, there's more money flowing in the system these days due to the huge amount of infrastructure spending from the federal government that's trickled on down to towns such as Boxborough. The State Drinking Water Revolving Fund now is at a high water mark for money. We've never seen anything like this before. And so as a consequence of that, very favorable loan terms and up to 20% loan forgiveness terms are now available through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, with preference given to systems that are trying to address PFAS issues. Littleton Water Department has taken the initiative to actually apply to the State Drinking Water Revolving Fund for funding for a good piece of this project to extend water service into Boxborough. And in fact, the SRF now includes an approximately $19 million for this project, not all of which would be spent in the first year, but the lion's share of it would be. I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 million are earmarked for expenditure in the 2023 plan. There's a very favorable financing, and it would benefit the owners and residents by lowering the cost of borrowing and solving this problem. And this is, we all think, is a once in a lifetime opportunity in terms of the availability of money, the availability of a good well to bring into service, and the fact that Littleton has invested in a very modern and capable new water treatment plant that can handle the load. So absent this option, Mass DEP will be forced to take action on some of the lingering and long-standing problems in this area and require owners to take corrective action. These small homeowners associations and businesses would need to then solve this rather costly solution problem on their own. So this seems like a very opportune time to take advantage of good winds and fair sailing and see if we can make something good happen for the residents and businesses and some of the citizens in Boxborough. If this were to transpire, this means ultimately that the taxpayers in Boxborough would not be paying for any part of this, or at least nothing substantial, but that the lion's share of the cost would be borne by the consumers, the property owners that would then pay for the loan retirement through betterments and so forth. All of that is quite complicated, has yet to be worked out in detail, but that's the general idea. Now, I think the next slide will just allow me to stop talking in a second and let someone else take over. This is a map, and I think there's a better map that Rajon might be able to put up at a larger scale that shows where this area of town is located west of 495, and the colors on this map can let someone from DEP speak just in a second and explain what that's all about. And the heavy blue line is a proposed pipe route down from the Littleton Water Treatment Plant that is currently being surveyed by engineers working on this project, which are Weston and Sampson. So I think at this point, unless there are any urgent questions that can't wait, I would like to ask someone from DEP, perhaps Marielle or Mary Jude, to speak and explain this map and some more detailed background about the things I just went over briefly.
Just a quick point before we switch the slide or zoom out. One of the discussions coming from yesterday or Saturday with Chief Philibrown was regarding the water in these buildings. So not just are these buildings subject to PFAS, but also we don't necessarily have a water supply. And we've already had 2 fires there. One of the big things I think would be amazing with this project is also having the first hydrants in Boxborough, like actual hydrants,
Yeah.
and especially in a high density area where safety is important.
Yes, well, thank you for you're being my straight man, Wes. In fact, I just confirmed with the conversation today with Corey that they are designing the system to supply high pressure water for fire suppression, fire treatment. So yes, it's part of the plan. So with that said, does somebody from DEP want to take the lead here on taking us to the next level?
Sure, that would be me, boss. I'm Mary Jude Pigsley. I'm the regional director of Mass DEP's Central Regional Office in Worcester. We have 77 cities and towns in the middle part of the state, many of which, unfortunately, are dealing with PFAS contamination. And as Les said, we have several people here with me tonight who have been working on water issues in general in Boxborough for several years, and PFAS in particular over the past couple of years. And we appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about the contamination in the Swanson Road area. We were here last year to have sort of an introductory conversation about the contamination that's caused specifically by chemicals that are known as PFAS. They're per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which is why we say PFAS instead, because that's a lot to say. They're man-made chemicals. They're in a huge number of consumer products, have been since around the 1940s. They don't break down in the environment. They are highly toxic in extremely small amounts, and they are especially toxic to sensitive subgroups such as pregnant women, nursing mothers, infants, and immune-compromised people who, even if they're exposed over a very short time, like a matter of months, not years, can have adverse consequences. So PFAS as an issue in Boxborough is not just this area that we're talking about. I'll talk about the map in a second, but as many people probably know, there are private wells near the center of town that have PFAS contamination as well. And I've been to several meetings about that also. So some people may have heard this before. What I'm going to describe is that Mass DEP doesn't regulate private wells. We regulate what are public water supplies, public water systems, and those are the ones that serve more than 25 people. So even if it's privately owned, like these businesses, like these condominiums, they're privately owned, but they serve more than 25 people. So they are regulated by Mass DEP. As Les said, he said there's no public system. Technically, these are public systems. There's no municipal water supply in Boxborough. So for the public water systems, back in October of 2020, we adopted a new standard for 6 of the PFAS chemicals that are among the most toxic, and we add those together. And the public water systems were required to sample for PFAS, and they are required to meet the standard for PFAS, which for the 6 chemicals combined is 20 parts per trillion. It's a really, really small number. So along the area of Swanson Road, Cobman Hill, there are 11 public water supplies. 10 of those are supplying water right now to people that is over 20 parts per trillion. The legend, we have different kinds of public water supplies. There's a light, they have little water spigots, which indicates on the mapping that it's a water system. The light green circles, there are 3 of them kind of in the middle that you can see. Those are what we call community systems. And those are ones where people live and they drink the water every day and they use it for cooking and making drinks. Pink is the PFAS, the areas where PFAS is exceeding the public water standard. And then the hatched area represents other contamination that my colleague from the Department of Transportation is going to talk about. So you can see there's a lot of pink over there for all these water systems. And I said 10 out of the 11 are violating the drinking water standard right now, and they have to install treatment. Les's slide was a little generous in talking about that we may do something, we will do something, we have done something. These systems have already received notices of non-compliance. They are not complying with the standard. In the interim, they are either providing bottled water or reimbursing people who are buying bottled water for using for not just cooking, but not just drinking, but cooking foods that absorb water, like rice and pasta, or making juice, or making ice, or making baby formula. People are using bottled water to do that, who are customers of these public water supplies, specifically those 3 that are the community systems, the green dots. So we don't allow bottled water as a permanent solution. That is not an answer. The answer here is treatment. The treatment's expensive. And the people who own these water systems, the property owners, and in the case of the condominiums, the homeowners, they're responsible for treating the water to get below the 20 parts per trillion. So in a minute, my colleague from MassDOT is going to talk about other water quality problems, the hatch marked spot, and state funding that's available from MassDOT for a long-term solution to that problem. Unfortunately, unlike MassDOT, Mass DEP does not have remediation funds that we give out for any water contamination, but specifically PFAS in this case, we do not have a remediation fund. So the public water suppliers are responsible for dealing with this. And as I said, bottled water is not a solution, and it's only an interim solution. We're expecting these systems to have already started figuring out what the design of these treatment systems would be and how much they'll cost, and they're expensive. What we do at Mass DEP, though, is we administer millions of dollars in federal money from the federal government that is awarded every year for water infrastructure projects. And that's what Les was talking about, the SRF, the State Revolving Fund. These are loans. They're usually at very low interest rates, but for PFAS projects in particular, with some recent legislation from the federal government, the PFAS projects are funded at 0% interest. And that's a big deal. Littleton has qualified for that funding because this is a PFAS project with the extension into Boxborough. It started off as developing the new water supply well for Littleton, but because of the location, it's a very serendipitous location where it would be pretty straightforward to bring that water line down the 4 miles and hit every one of these 11 public water systems and deal with that at no cost to the town of Boxborough. This is not something where Littleton is seeking the town or taxes to fund or pay back the loan that Littleton will be taking out to accomplish the project. The idea is that instead of the homeowners and business owners paying for their own individual treatment systems and continuing in the water supply business with all the new rules and regulations that constantly come into play, like these PFAS rules 2 years ago, they would get out of the water supply business and they would be customers of Littleton, and they would pay bills to Littleton. And I can, you'll hear later from Corey Godfrey from Littleton Electric Light Water Department to talk about how that would work. I have to say that Mass DEP is not pushing one or the other. It doesn't matter to the Commonwealth how the water is fixed. It just has to be fixed. And it's not a long-term distant problem. It's a problem for right now. So we support either way that the property owners decide to go, but this really is sort of a generational flow of money out of Washington right now through these federal programs to fund infrastructure, particularly for drinking water and specifically for PFAS. We've never seen this money before. So I think it's an excellent opportunity, but we also have an opportunity for funding from MassDOT that goes along with that. And so I'll turn that over to Laureen. Thanks.
Do we have the next speaker?
Is Lorraine there? I can't see the room anymore. I don't know whether it's still useful to have this map up, Rajan. Maybe we could go back to
I don't see her in the room
there it is. There she is.
Oh.
Looks like she's muted.
She's on a different one. There we go.
I see her on the phone.
Ah, there we go. I wasn't able to unmute.
Okay.
So now I'm unmuted. Hi, everybody. So what's that? Okay. So my name is Lorene Poland, and I supervise the salt remediation program for Mass DOT. And many of you may know that several of the properties on the western part of 495 on Swanson Road, and actually one on Mass Ave, has been impacted by salt from winter road maintenance and parking lot treatment. Everybody's putting down salt, so but we are significantly more responsible than others at about 53% or so. There's several tools that we use to mitigate the impacts of salt. One of them is that we drill replacement wells, but due to how dense the developments are here, and due to their wastewater issues, and due to the PFAS, there's no way that we can drill a replacement well for these people. And then the other option, our most preferred option, and the most cost-effective one, for long-term clean drinking water is to connect to town water. And the other alternative, and is our least favorite, is, a reverse osmosis system that has to filter out absolutely everything. And the cost to install something like that and the cost in perpetuity is, I would say it's cost prohibitive, and the maintenance and everything to do that. And I don't want to speak for DEP, but with the waste stream that's coming from that and the PFAS that would be coming from that, that has to be dealt with as well. So in my opinion, reverse osmosis for these systems is not the best long-term solution. Many of you may know elevated sodium is a health concern for those people that have hypertension. Also, extreme high concentrations of chloride can cause leaching of lead and copper, which is currently happening in one of these buildings. And also, high chloride can cause like a decreased life expectancy of plumbing infrastructure and appliances. So getting lower sodium and chloride concentrations in these buildings is really important. As stated, Mass DOT is supporting this project because we do believe it's the best long-term solution for these residents that solves a multitude of water quality issues and providing clean water. And MassDOT currently is taking this opportunity and piggybacking on the SRF funding that's available, and is considering their donation to the project to help lower the costs for the residents. I don't have that yet, but that's what we're doing here to support this program.
Thanks, Lorraine. Corey, did you want to jump in at this point?
Yeah, thanks, Les.
Corey is the superintendent of the sewer and water departments at Littleton Electric, Light and Water.
Yeah. So I think Les provided a good background earlier, and I think some of you all probably remember, if this was, say, a little over a year ago, the conversation we would have been having at that time was that Littleton was looking for a new source of water supply, and that there might have been one in Boxborough, and that we were trying to figure out at that time if we could gain access to that and in exchange provide water to these contaminated areas west of 495. Now, since that time, a lot has happened in the past year. We found that new well in our own town on the Amazon property, but we are still willing to help out with these contaminated systems in Boxborough. So as Mary Jude mentioned earlier, we've already submitted an application for this project, and we're on Mass DEP's State Revolving Fund Loan Intended Use Plan. And that kind of basically means that we're like pre-approved for a $19 million loan to develop our new well in Littleton and run a transmission line from it to our new treatment plant, which goes online next month, and then extend our distribution system down into Boxborough to provide treated water to the residents that we're talking about and the businesses. And as Mary Jude described, this loan comes with a 0% interest rate and a potential for 20% loan forgiveness. At least that's what we saw in our recent PFAS project with the treatment plant that we built. We received almost $5 million in loan forgiveness on that project. And the reason for that is that loan forgiveness and that low interest rate, the 0% interest rate, is that it's a PFAS related project. And as you just heard from Lorraine, Mass DOT is also willing to commit some funding to the project. So Littleton is moving forward with the development of the new well and running the transmission line to connect it to our new treatment plant, regardless of whether or not we also extend our distribution system into Boxborough. And there's some important points around this SRF loan that I want to make sure are clear here. So once you're on the state's intended use plan, which we are now, there's a very strict schedule of deadlines that must be met in order to actually receive the loan. And the first one of those, and probably the most important, is that we have funding for the entire project appropriated by June 30th of this year. So that's only less than 6 months away from now. So what that means for us here in Littleton, and for me specifically, is that I have to go to our annual town meeting in May and convince Littleton voters that we should borrow $19 million for this project, 13 million of which is really for Boxborough. And in order for me to do that, I need to be able to demonstrate that the town of Boxborough supports the project and that it makes financial sense for the town of Littleton to do this. And the best way for me to do that is with a signed intermunicipal agreement, like Les mentioned, between Littleton and Boxborough, which would allow Littleton to provide water services to these select properties in Boxborough and to do everything that we need to do as a public water supplier, which would include designing, constructing, and maintaining water infrastructure in Boxborough in its rights of way, and to issue betterment fees to recover those costs to the Boxborough property owners that connect to our system, and that would have to be done through the Boxborough tax collector. So you can see why an intermunicipal agreement would be required here, because we need that mechanism set up to do that. Now, if I have a signed intermunicipal agreement in hand at our annual town meeting, I'm fairly confident that our voters will likely support the project, because this really is a win-win for everyone involved. As Les described, 20% of your constituents are currently being exposed to contaminated water, and Littleton is in a pretty unique position to help solve that problem for them relatively quickly and at a reasonable cost without any impact to Boxborough taxpayers. And by doing so, Littleton receives the same favorable loan terms associated with the PFAS solution project, meaning a 0% interest rate and up to 20% loan forgiveness. And then, as Lorraine just described, Mass DOT would then have a viable solution to the road salt contamination issue that's been going on for years. And finally, the properties affected end up with a long-term, cost-effective solution that provides them with high-quality drinking water without ever really having to think about it again. It'll just flow out of the tap. Littleton Water will be responsible for ensuring compliance with drinking water standards into the future. And as an added bonus, fire protection, which that came up earlier, which obviously would help prevent loss of life and property and help lower insurance rates for those property owners as well. But again, the main point that I want to make here tonight is that in order for Littleton to do anything here, we really need to start working on an intermunicipal agreement and have that pretty much finalized by the end of April, before Littleton's town meeting the first week of May. I'll hand it over to Les.
Thank you very much, Corey. I see Wes's hand is up, and after he gets a chance to talk, I think if our chair would like to go along with it, maybe invite members of the board to ask other questions and then see where we go from there.
Yes, I actually have a question as well, Les. So,
Okay.
Wes, go ahead.
Okay, so my question was relating to the water, and so I guess, is there like a contribution that would be looking, because I assume that if we put out a fire, right, the town would own the water that we pull out, that the fire department pulls from the fire hydrant, and then we would either go through insurance to recover the money or something like that. But I just want to, like, it's not, I don't, like, I love this project and everything that you guys have done for this. I just want to make sure that, like, we just take into account all the expenses, because I think it's actually extremely reasonable, even if we have to just pay for the fire suppression, because now we're and so we don't have to use like a suppression foam, which has caused problems in other areas, not necessarily for us, but in general. It's
Yeah, so we don't charge for fire suppression water usage. You know, if there's a fire in Littleton and we put the fire department uses a hydrant to put that fire out, we don't charge for that because it's not metered anyways, and it's just part of the service we're providing as a public water system.
Then that's awesome. Thank you.
You turn the meter off when you're putting a fire out.
John? You're muted, John.
Corey, will the water supply be able to address the folks on both Codman Hill and Swanson Road?
Yes, it could potentially. That's sort of remains to be seen which of these systems want to connect or ultimately end up connecting. But the plan right now would be to connect all 11 that we've been talking about, including Codman Hill and Swanson.
Okay. So I had a question as well.
Okay. So when you
said,
the 20% loan forgiveness, that could also apply.
Go ahead, John. I'm sorry. You're a little delayed, I guess.
Yeah. So the 20% load forgiveness, that would also apply to when we look at the betterment. So for instance, if you're saying that 13 million out of the 19 million would be associated with the expenses for, if you took the 20%, you drop that down to about 10.4 million. So I assume that would also potentially lower the betterment charges for the Boxborough residents, correct?
Yes, exactly. The 20% would come right off the top, and everybody's betterment would be 20% less.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
So I have two questions along with that. You specified 11 properties. Is it going to service other properties on Codman and Swanson that are not included in those 11? Are there more than that to cover? That's my first question. And my second question is, you mentioned that the betterment fees would be collected by the Boxborough tax collector, correct? So this is going to be how that's actually done on a tax bill, a regular monthly bill. You know, those are all the things that go into it. I would assume that you're assuming that the costs of that administration is going to be borne by Boxborough. So these are all the kinds of details that really need to be ironed out completely, so we know fully what our actual costs are for the project as a town.
Yes, yeah, that's what the intermunicipal agreement would be defining, essentially, is how all of those details would work. So a lot of those questions that you just brought up remain to be answered. It would be essentially, a negotiation between Littleton and Boxborough as we develop the IMA to determine, the mechanism for how those fees are assessed, if there's administrative costs, how those are recovered either by Boxborough or by Littleton. And then with respect to your question about other properties beyond the 11 that we've been talking about, again, I think that would be defined in the IMA, because I think there may be an interest probably on the part of Littleton and the part of Boxborough to define exactly which properties will be connected and exactly what quantity of water would be provided, because we wouldn't want it to, run away over the course of the next 10 years and all of a sudden we're providing 10 times more water than we thought we were ever going to. So that would all be worked out in the IMA.
And when would you anticipate that we would have the workings on the IMA? Because these are kind of crucial as to whether or not the town supports it. If we're going to bring this to town meeting, I'm assuming it.
So an IMA is between the board and the other town. So technically the select board can create an IMA without going to town meeting. And since we're not asking to raise and appropriate funds, we also technically don't need to go to town meeting.
Okay.
That's my understanding as well.
That's what the Water Resources Committee was advised some years ago when we first started thinking about this. And you're right, it's the select board can enter into an agreement, just as we did for our current service for animal control officer to Stowe and Littleton.
But you're talking about getting this agreement before Littleton's town meeting, which is coming up in May. I would assume.
Because they're raising and appropriating and taking out a bond.
Yeah, because they want the assurance, so they're
about the timing for this municipal agreement. Based on what you're saying, these details need to be really in focus within the next 2 months.
Yes, we have a lot of work to do.
Yep.
On both sides, right? Absolutely. So you'll be seeing this as a pretty regular agenda item for a while, I think. So,
yeah.
John?
Yeah. So Corey, my question is, this is a very tight schedule to.
John, you need to turn off your video, I think.
It's
losing you.
John, maybe turn your video off and see if that helps.
Yep. See if that helps. Okay. Corey, I'm just wondering what happens if we miss the deadline?
Yeah, I think you would miss the boat on the whole project, unfortunately. It's not a deadline that Littleton's imposing per se. We need to demonstrate to the state that we have the full project cost appropriated by June 30th. And the only way for us to do that is with a town meeting borrowing authorization. And like I was describing, there's no way I can convince Littleton voters to borrow $13 million for the town of Boxborough unless they're going to see some kind of benefit out of it. And they're not going to feel comfortable with that unless there's an IMA, pretty well established at that point.
Yeah, there's no flexibility in that SRF deadline.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, or sorry. I'd like to say thanks to everybody for doing all this work. Like, I kid you not, this has been like a long standing project, and I don't think anyone knows that better than Les and some of the other people that have been working on this. And I think we're very fortunate at this point in time to kind of have like a perfect storm come together where we have an option where all we really need is an IMA, and we have government or excessive government fund, not excessive, but a lot of government funding that you wouldn't otherwise have to reduce the cost to the, especially because these are also, a lot of these people that are being impacted are not necessarily the $1 million single family residences either. And so I think this is extremely important for us to at least, at a very minimum, get an IMA in place before the Littleton town meeting.
Right. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of work required, and I want to just call out a few of the folks who didn't speak. Marielle Stone, who's on the call, is a deputy director at DEP and has been very involved in this project. I think I first learned about her through a meeting 4 years ago when we first heard about the problem. It was only about salt back then. PFAS wasn't even on our radar screen. So it's gotten complicated and worse as time's gone on, but we've continued to plug away at it. So Marielle and Mary Jude have been very engaged in this, as Corey and a number of other people, Laureen, the folks from Weston and Sampson Engineering who are on the call, Kevin McKinnon, Tara McManus, and a number of people. So we don't have time to thank everybody or go into details, but I just want to acknowledge there's been a lot of work by a lot of folks to do this. And I see a familiar hand, if I may just say, and by way of recognizing Don Provencher, who has got his hand up to make a comment. Don actually did the redesign of our system for the Hager well when we had to redo that some years ago. Time flies. How long has it been, Don? Tell me.
So please go ahead, Don.
Thanks, everybody. I can't remember less how long that's been.
Right.
No, I was just, in case you didn't know, I am actually under contract. I'm a civil engineer. I've designed some PFAS treatment. I've probably done about 12 projects in Boxborough, not PFAS necessarily, but just a bunch of projects in Boxborough for small community water systems. I'm actually currently under contract with Codman Hill Condos and Brook Village to look at some of their own on-site PFAS treatment for their own currently operating on-site public water supplies. And I guess maybe this is a question for DEP, just to ask what in the meantime between this meeting in May, what level of effort would you recommend that we proceed with for these projects that I'm working on currently? It seems like May is going to be a make or break period of time. So, obviously we wouldn't want to commit too many resources to having me design something that may not be used, hopefully. And I'm in favor of this water system. I'm in the business of small water system designs, but I do recommend that this is a better option in the long run. So I want to get that on the table, but just trying to figure out what makes sense to do between now and May is basically my question. And what kind of incentive do these condominium complexes have to hook up, if maybe that can be explained a little bit deeper? Thanks.
If I may, is that okay?
Please.
Thank you. So the notices of non-compliance have already gone out, and the systems were required to come up with their long-term plans. And I know the systems that you're speaking of have gone forward to look into design of a treatment system. Given that the June 30th deadline is immovable, I mean, that money goes away. I wouldn't put the brakes on too hard. I mean, we are not in any way saying people don't have to deal with this problem. They have to deal with the problem. So in between now and May, I think a wait and see attitude is fine. But especially if you have these systems that are going down the road in terms of design, I wouldn't order anything yet. But given what we've seen with supply chain issues, we're not going to be really patient for these people waiting another year or two to get this done. It's something that it has to be done, and we're very deeply understanding of the financial problem this causes, which is one reason why just personally, my colleagues and I at DEP feel it's good to get people out of the water supply business and leave it to the professionals. I don't want Don to be out of business, but it's a better thing for these homeowners not to have this headache of being a water supplier and paying to be a water supplier. Having said that, we're not incentivizing anybody. We're not going to start issuing penalties. We're not doing anything like that. But there is no trade-off for us. The goal for Mass DEP is compliance, and the homeowners and business owners have to get there one way or the other. There's no incentivizing from DEP. However, I understand from MassDOT's perspective that the water line is the long-term cost-effective solution that the Commonwealth in that department is looking at, and that money wouldn't be available for repeated replacement of treatment trains because of the salt. If you chose the water line, that whole problem goes away. And I don't want to speak for Laureen, but my understanding is that's the appropriate incentive from the Commonwealth, because that money is part of the water line solution. Is that right, Laureen? Am I saying that correctly?
Okay. Wow. Ainsley, I noticed you had your hand up, but I don't know if you want to say anything at this point. Your hand is down. So are there any other questions?
Lorraine just got
Ashling.
Sorry, I'm
sorry.
trying here. Yeah, you kind of summed that up good. So MassDOT's money, it's just not money that comes from anywhere. It is taxpayer money. And so we have to be very prudent and responsible with taxpayer money. And always the policy is, we've heard this said again a couple of times, the most cost-effective long-term solution. So if by spending X amount of dollars today, the problem goes away forever, then that's the amount of money MassDOT is going to dedicate towards this project. People don't get to pick and choose and say, well, I want to keep my own water supply, but it's going to cost me X, Y, and Z this year, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, and then expect MassDOT to keep throwing money at it. That's just not the way it works. I'm not a lawyer, so I might not be wording that exactly the way it should be worded, but basically that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Ainsley. Aisling.
Hi, yeah, thanks. Aisling O'Shea here. So I'm an owner at Codman Hill, and I really appreciate this opportunity to learn about what's going on and what has been going on. Obviously, a lot of work. So it seems like obviously a great opportunity. And my question was partly related to the betterment costs and the process for engaging the Codman Hill and Swanson, as with the town in this developing of the IMA. Like, I know there's going to be a meeting on the 19th, so maybe that's the appropriate time for more detail on the betterments. But 13 million obviously sounds a lot of money. I don't know, have no idea what that would translate to in terms of individual bills over time. And for us as an association, as Don mentioned, we're already looking into the cost of getting into compliance right now. And we have a rough sense of what that might be for this year, but of course we don't know what that would be going down the road and as things might change. So, the ability to be part of, hook into Littleton is of great interest, but obviously, at what point will we have a better sense on what those costs might be and what's the community or the process for the associations to work with the town as this IMA, conversations go forward?
Diana, if I may respond to that, please. Thanks for joining us. I see a few other representatives from condo associations on the screen. And so to answer your question, on January 19th, there's going to be a meeting, a longer meeting, going over much of the same material here, but going into more detail, a deeper dive into the whole question about costs, betterments, and how that works. And actually, we hope to hear more from the owners and operators of the current systems. What is the current cost, so we can all understand what is the trade-off point, and that prove we're on the right side here. I also want to take this opportunity to call out a few other folks that we didn't mention earlier who have been very, very involved and helpful here. And those are the folks from RCAP Solutions. Jim Starbard and Danielle Demaray are on the call. They are been very helpful in helping us get organized for this January 19th meeting, where we are actually tomorrow going to be sending out 480 letters to condo owners over in that part of town, explaining what's happening at the January 19th meeting and giving you multiple ways to get plugged into a webinar and so forth. So we hope to get into your questions in some detail on the 19th, but those are all questions that we do want to get into. Everybody talked out on this at this point?
Seems to be. Do we have any other questions or comments?
I don't see any hands anywhere.
I don't either. Les, thank you very much for bringing this before the board. It sounds like a very good solution for that community, and we need to get on it as quickly as we can, I think.
Here, here. So I want to thank all the folks who have been with the project since the beginning for sticking with it and being here tonight. And I'll see you on the 19th as well, I hope. Okay. So thank you all very much.
Thank you for allowing us to come. Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.
I can't leave yet.
Okay, so board, we're moving on to the cost of living allowance for non-union and non-contract employees for FY24. Mike, do you want to explain about this?
Rajan is prepared to
Rajan.
to talk to this one.
Great, Rajan. Thank you.
Yes, so for this year, so the personnel board, the finance committee, the select board met last month and decided on the what was the cost of living adjustment for the non-union, non-contract personnel for this year. So that ended up being 2.9%. But just to give a little background on how they came to this number, so it's actually how this number is determined. It's a 3-year rolling average based on the consumer price index for the last 3 years that the personnel board looks at to determine what is the necessary COLA to give for the non-union and non-contracted personnel. So this has been determined. This has been the process they've used the past few fiscal years to determine, just as a way to keep in step with the market, the current market, as well as making sure that the numbers fall in line with what's going on with the economy right now. And I actually have a chart if you want me to share.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Curious.
So this is just what they use for the spreadsheet, and this is for the years 2020, 2021, and 2022. So this is a 3-year rolling average in row AC, and based on the last 3 annual years, this is how it came to 2.9% for the cost of living adjustment.
So just to clarify, Rajan, what is done is that we take the CPI for every single month in the last 36 months, and we average that together.
Yeah.
We're not taking 1 month and use it as a benchmark, and we're taking just the average of 36 months, correct?
That's correct. And it's not just a month, it's from January up until November when it's calculated.
Right. Okay. So we've gone back those 3 years, and this is what we've ended up with. And I understand this. I believe this was agreed to by the personnel board, correct?
Yes, they voted on it last month for the 2.9%.
Right. And the finance committee did as well?
Not yet. They're going to vote on it next week.
They're voting on it next week. So it's up to us tonight. So let me make a motion here.
Do you want to make a motion or do you want questions before? Do you want
That's okay.
discussion
You want to
before
make the
or
motion
after?
and then we can discuss it?
Either or.
Okay, well, I move to approve the cost of living allowance for the non-union and non-contract employees for the fiscal year 2024 to 2.9%. Do I have a second? Do I have a
I'll
second?
second it.
Okay, so now discussion. Wes?
Yeah, last year's was about what, 2.7 or 2 point what?
I don't,
Let me look it up because I brought this up last year that with the inflation and everybody told me, no, inflation's ending. Inflation's ending.
It was 1.9 for last year.
it was
So
1.9.
literally at town meeting, we gave people 1.9. Wow. No, I'm not saying what the 3-year rolling average last year was.
That's
So
what we
you're saying
did,
that
1.9.
Geez, no wonder people are unionizing. Okay, so I mean, like this year, like I even got a raise for myself to count for inflation and saying 2.9. So what we're effectively doing is we're punting down the road. So next year and the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to be paying I'm fine with this, just so long as everybody's aware, and I don't want people to change it because the number's too big and ugly. And I want to make this point intentionally because in the past I've seen people change the way we calculate things because the number got too big. And I don't think that's fair to people. Because if we're going to stay with something, we can stay with it and be consistent, and I'm okay with that. But I just want to make sure that we continue to be consistent even when it's not advantageous to us. So long as we're using this preface to keep it down, I also want to be fair to the people that are working to make sure that when it goes up for the next 2 to 3 years, because this year the inflation is also high. And so then once we bump off the 1.1, this is going to be going up a lot, like I guess, or the 1.6, right?
Right.
So the next 3 to 4 years are going to be significantly larger, and I'm fine with that for this year. However, I do think there should be some prudence of pulling forward some of those, mainly because this is the time of hardship. And so if inflation goes down in 2 to 3 years, we're kind of like, right, so you have the cost of living is going up. We're living in, let's say, an average. So let's say we're living minus 2 years. And so this is kind of how we're like trailing. And so I don't know if there's even a point in marrying them or figuring out some other way, but I just want to make sure that we don't do people wrong. That's all I guess my point is.
So Wes, I just want to put in there that when we met regarding this issue, Maria, myself, Sheila, and Mike, we talked about the fact that Mike had a different way of doing it with a comparison to other towns, doing basically an analysis of the raises and so forth. That is something that I know Mike and Rajan were planning to look into moving forward. But right now we don't have that situation. And perhaps Mike could speak to that. Just hold on 1 minute, Maria, and I'll get to you in a second. Mike, perhaps you could speak to that just a little bit.
I can. So we did do a little bit of comparative analysis, and across the state, this 2.9 is not too far out of line. In fact, it's a little on the higher side. But when you look at our comparable communities, the 20 that we normally compare against, it's actually higher. Rajan, what was the number? I don't recall. I know it was higher than the 2.9% for our 20 comp towns.
So it's around 3.5 for the 20 comp communities. And for one of the communities, they don't do steps. They don't have a step progression, so they give just a cost of living adjustment as well as a merit increase. So that's one of the communities that actually gives well above, but on average, Commonwealth wise, it's around 2.4. just because I did a survey to some of the other communities who already established their COLAs. And then for the 20 comp communities, it's around 3.5 for their non-union personnel.
So we thought moving forward, we would go that route, but it's difficult at this point to look at that. John, and then Maria, I'll get to you, but John has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand how you came to the 2.9. I'm just looking at the numbers. I just want to understand that. That's all.
So it's 1.6 plus 1.1 plus 5.8 divided by 3.
And those are three averages.
That's for column AC. Or no, AB, sorry. So column
Okay.
AB.
So
Okay.
you average the 3 years.
Well, because the difference is, and why it's a little bit confusing, is that column S is the annual, like January to December, whereas column AB is July to July. And so we will intrinsically lag roughly 6 months behind any inflation for the calendar year.
Okay.
This was what was decided by the personnel board.
I understand, but what I'm also just
I know,
my
I
thing is,
understand
like,
what you're saying. I do,
like,
believe me.
I was like, if we're gonna
Maybe
set
Maria
the
can give
trap,
us a
we
little
should,
more
yeah. Go ahead.
insight. Maria? Can't hear you.
Actually, I want to do a clarification. Finance Committee has not voted on this. We did discuss it because I didn't have it on the agenda as an action to vote. We discussed it as part of the overall FY24 budget. Everyone agreed, and we are going to vote on it. And at next week's meeting, I have it on the agenda as an actual vote. Given the conversation we had the other night, I don't anticipate an issue with this increase. I'm not sure what kind of insight you want me to give, Diana. This is something Personnel Board does, and we all meet, and well, we being the chairs of the three committees with the town administrator. So they came forward, they voted on this. It seemed reasonable, and it's what we've been doing for a number of years. So it's consistent. And with warning, that's what we talked about in our meeting, is that if Mike and Rajan want to change this going forward, we're going to sort of give town meeting that warning kind of, through the personnel plan, I think. That's kind of what we talked about. But this is a personnel board number that they put forward to the two committees. So we'll vote on it next week. I just want to make sure there was a clarification on that.
Thank you, Maria. John?
Okay, my question is, how many employees are impacted by this? And what's the total cost to the town for this increase?
Rajan?
So it's going to be primarily town hall and library, because DPW, dispatch, fire, and police are, they fall under union contracts. So it's pretty much going to be town hall and library.
And the cost for it is just under $23,000. And so anyone who's on contract, so that would be our many of our department heads, including the library director, myself, the chiefs, the DPW director, are excluded from this because those increases would be contractual. And as Rajan said,
Right.
It wouldn't include the union employees. So I don't know the exact number, but we do have an administrative assistant in police and an administrative assistant that we're advertising for right now, who will be shared between fire and DPW, who this would apply to. And as Rajan said, otherwise it would be library other than the director and mostly the administrative assistants and support staff in town hall.
Okay, thank you.
Wes?
So yeah, my comments not necessarily about this, but just more towards Mike and Rajan about moving forward. If we do plan to switch this, how we calculate this, the only way that I could see myself supporting it would be if we get an MOU with the personnel board and the FinCom saying that in the future for the next subsequent 3 years after, because that's the trailing average, that either whatever new mechanism we choose or this rolling 3-year average, I would want the highest number to be selected for the subsequent 3 years, or to be no less than what this is for the next 3 years, like our current metric. And so if the new metric for say, like, let's say the average of our comparable communities is less than what's going to be next year, which will be like 3.5 or 3.7, just because I know inflation still hasn't gone down while we have the invasion in Ukraine, I don't expect it to go down. I just want to make sure that we take care of our employees in a manner that's been consistent, and we just don't switch it to be beneficial to the town only. So that's just my only last point.
Okay, any other comments? So
I would like to say,
I agree. I agree with what Wes just said.
I agree also. I do.
yeah,
So
I would like to see the spreadsheet, maybe someone, because I like to see how the calculations actually done. There's a lot of columns with colors in there that I couldn't work it out fast enough with my little hand calculator.
So are we ready to vote on this?
I'll move to approve the 2.9% COLA increase for the fiscal year 2024. Or actually, no, we already made that motion. Sorry. Nope, we made that motion.
We did. We had a second. So my question is, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
So let's take a vote. Les?
Fox, aye.
Wes?
Folks, aye.
John?
Markowitz, aye.
And Lepari, aye. So you've heard our comments, Rajan and Mike, about this. So moving forward, I think we need to really pay attention to what the procedure is going to be and give people a heads up at the town meeting in our presentation on this.
Just for a point, like I'm not opposed to change, but I just think that if the change, we should at least carry forward the benefits that were expected and or like have a transition period or expected period at a time.
I agree, but based on what the initial investigation was this year, I think our employees will do better. The comparison. I do. Overall, based on those comp communities, because we live in an area which is, a little higher. So I think.
And I know, but I think like either having the MOU or something like that to kind of show some coherence or cohesion between, for recommendation between the town boards and committees, as well as the supporting the town administrator, new town administrator, and the assistant town administrators propose new things. I think that would give our employees and residents a kind of a good vibe, I guess.
Right. I agree.
Wes, could you either repeat or just put into writing what it was that you were proposing so that, so that I don't violate what you were trying
So effectively, very simply, if we change the way we calculate the cost of living adjustment, it should not be less than this calculation that we've done for the next 3 years, is I guess the best way to put it. So because it's a 3-year average, and so after 3 years, we're going to be out, effectively, we're going to have like a whole new thing. But so if for the next 3 years, if we choose to change the calculation, that also kind of gives us a buffer to say, maybe this is not the best way to do it. And like, that's effectively, long story short, over the next 3, whenever we propose it or get a change, I would love to have an MOU with the FinCom and the Personnel Board and the Select Board to say that if we do intend to change, that the town employees not under contract or not under union agreements would get the better of the 2 plans. And then have after 3 years, then it kind of falls off and becomes the new one if we decide to continue it, if that makes sense.
I see what you're saying, because you're anticipating that average could go up next year, given where we are with inflation. So yeah, I understand your point.
I'll send a follow-up email just to make sure.
Great.
Yep.
Okay. Are we ready to move on, everybody?
Yep.
Okay. So I asked for this to be put on the agenda, and it didn't get in your packet until late, so I'm not sure you saw the information about the 250 committee. It came to my attention actually through Facebook and a post by our Senator Eldridge about what Acton was doing. And that's another issue which we're going to take up hopefully at another meeting, what prompted that post. But it came to my attention that, guess what? There's the 250th anniversary of the United States, the founding of the United States, coming up in 2025 with the Battle of Concord and Lexington, and 2026 with the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The federal government signed legislation in 2016, which formed a committee called America 250, and it's a nonprofit organization, and it was designated to work with various states and public and private entities to put into planned celebrations for the 250th anniversary. Massachusetts also adopted legislation, I believe in 2020 or 2021, regarding the participation of Massachusetts in this celebration. I found at least two, and I stopped after these two, Concord and Acton, that have charged 250, what they call 250 committees. In Concord, it's an executive committee. In Acton, in Concord, it's an executive commission. In Acton, it's a committee. Obviously, Concord has a lot of responsibility because of all the historic sites, the Concord Bridge and the North Bridge and all kinds of other sites. They're coordinating with Lexington and with Bedford and a couple of other towns around us for the celebrations. Theirs is a very large mandate. Acton is a little smaller, but they have both formed these committees. And given the fact that Boxborough was an active participant in the American Revolution,
Point of order. Foxborough was not around during the American Revolution.
That's right. But our area, our geography, geography was, our land was. And so we do have a Minutemen, for example, that celebrate this. So I just thought I would propose to this board that we form our own 250 committee. Obviously, the breadth of our celebrations will be less, but I thought it would be a nice idea to have a committee like this for Boxborough. And I am proposing that we consider the formation of an ad hoc committee. And I know you probably haven't had a chance to read the material, but most of these committees range from 9 to 11 to 12 people. I'm not sure we need that many. But what I am proposing is that we've pulled together a document that would include who would serve. Obviously, we would want to have people from, historical commission, the museum, diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the things that I found particularly important about this is that it is about not just about colonials and the American Revolution, but also the Native American population, an emphasis on also those people from the Black community that participated. And we do have some in Boxborough, a very famous family. And that what was going on overall. It's not just about the revolutionaries. So it is an overall experience of the time period. So we would want to have, for example, a member of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And so what I'm proposing is, what I wanted to talk about tonight was that we have a discussion about whether we want to do this, and then perhaps put a charge out to either the town administrator, and forgive me, John, you're in there because I mentioned to Wes,
I know,
to Mike, that perhaps you might want to take it on to do this, but don't feel pressured, to come back to the board with an actual charge and a breakdown of the number of members we would want, and then we would vote definitively on it. I just wanted a sense of it tonight. So let me just make a motion first, as sort of generic motion, and then we'll talk about it and see if you want to move forward, which is, I move to accept that the select board form a 250 committee and to come back at a later meeting to present a charge to the board. Do I have a second on that?
Oh, I'll second it.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Anybody have a comment, on this concept?
Honestly, I kind of want to go to Concord's because there's going to be off the hook and then I don't have to pay for it. But
I don't think we have to.
I guess my concerns is that, Boxborough had quite a turnout and a lot of people involved in our, what do we call it, Crosby Bicentennial, the
right, that's right.
Yeah.
225.
Yeah, and there were a lot of people who pitched in on that. They did a lot of things. This could get even more people turning out. So it seems like it could end up being a lot of work for somebody, and there could be a budget proposed to support whatever they come up with at some point. So we ought to think about that. It seems like it makes sense for us to do something, but I don't know what it is. But that's not our job. Our job is to give a charge.
Well, I think we should look at what the what's the charter say? What does the document say? Has
Well,
anybody read it?
Yeah, if you look at it, unfortunately, it got left out of the packet. So you do have it there now. If you read through it, it gives you a good idea about what the charge was in Concord and also in Acton. As I said, I don't think ours needs to be as involved because literally we have a few, sites. I mean, we do have a very famous site up on Hill Road where people gather to go to the battle. We have the Pfeiffer, who is obviously on our town seal, Luther Blanchard. We have Minutemen. We have a Pfeiffer's Day every year. What I'm sort of thinking in my mind that this would be an opportunity really as much for educating the public, because I do believe that we don't know enough about what was going on in our area pre-revolution. For example, the area that I'm in right now was part of the Neshoba village, which it was part of Littleton at the time, but it was part of the Neshoba praying village, which was part of the very important Indian settlement pre-revolutionary that was incorporated into Littleton, and the lots were sold in the early 18th century. So there's all that kind of history that I don't think people in Boxborough are very familiar with, and I see this as an opportunity to promote more understanding of our roots and moving on into those celebrations and coordinating with our neighbors on some of those things. So that's kind of what I'm envisioning.
I saw the brief thing that you sent around outside the agenda, but I did not have a chance to follow the link and get the details. So I don't know what the other towns are actually doing.
Well, they really do vary, and there is some funding available. Concord is going all out, and they're going for grants and things of that sort because there's going to be some major celebrations. But
this is why you go to Concord.
Yeah, I know that's. I guess like we should participate on some level, however small.
I think we should participate as well. I guess my question would be, what did we do for the bicentennial in Boxborough? Since I was not here then,
I wasn't either.
So that would probably be the place I would start first.
Anybody answer that question? Because I wasn't here then either.
On the bicentennial?
Yep.
1976.
I wasn't here then.
Yeah, so none of us were.
Okay.
But there are people who were and might be able to provide some perspective on that. There are lots of history.
I think that might have been the impetus for getting the Minutemen actually started. I think that's the year they may have started.
Maybe.
Well, the good thing is
I could be wrong. I think it was earlier than that. I think it was earlier than that.
We have a museum. We have an historical commission. We have a diversity equity. One of the people that they do use in Acton is an educator from Acton Boxborough School District. That's one of the people on their committee. They have several at-large members. So we do have people with some knowledge in the community that I think would be worthwhile putting on this. As I said, I don't see this as a major committee because our participation will be somewhat peripheral, but just to be able to have a sense that we're participating and connecting with our fellow communities through this committee and coordinating some activities. That's kind of how I'm seeing it.
Yeah, I think we should do something. And selfishly, I think it's still true that we are having ongoing issues getting a sustained membership in the celebrations committee. Public Celebrations Committee. Well, what's a public celebration if not this, right? So why can't, if we do something here, let's see if we can use it as a outreach to people who might be interested in getting involved and taking roles in that committee on an ongoing basis as opposed to a one-shot ad hoc.
Well, I see this as also a really fun thing, which could bring the community together in public celebrations. So I don't
think they're mutually exclusive. You could also
Right.
just say that this is the chart. We could also just say this is the charge of the Public Celebrations Committee, and then get people to sign up for that.
Something. Think about it.
So do we want, John, are you willing to take this on, or do you want,
Well, what I'll do is I'll take a look at what the charter is. I'll take a look at what other communities are doing, and I'll come back to the board.
how's that sound to everybody?
Okay, with Mike. Okay.
Okay, so then I'm changing the motion that John Markowitz, which was my alternative motion, that John Markowitz and the town administrator discuss and review the charters of the 250 committee, come back to the board at a later meeting. Les, do you accept the motion as modified?
I do.
Any further discussion? Okay, Les,
Hawks eye.
Wes,
Okay.
John,
Markowitz, aye.
and Lapari, aye. Thank you for volunteering, John.
By the way, it's not a very long time to get something done.
No, I know. Well, the good thing is Acton just did theirs in the summer and Concord did theirs about a year or so ago. So you know, they have, people are a little bit behind. It's not been promoted.
Maybe we'll have a water fight on Swanson Road and Codman Hill Road.
Yes, there we go. Okay, so we're on to the role of liaisons to committees and boards. So I know that John wanted to talk about this, and I'm going to turn this over to you, John, so you can mention something, but I think there is also, no, you don't want to talk about it?
Well, I actually thought, I just saw that on the agenda, and actually the document that I have, I don't have in front of me, that I had sent out to the, I think I had sent it possibly to Mike, but I'm not sure. So because I don't have the document in front of me, I would prefer that we move this to another meeting.
Okay, well, let me just give you, and I think
unless other board members want to have a discussion, but I don't have my document in front of me.
That's fine.
John, I'm just curious, is the document you're talking about one of our policy documents, or?
No, it's not. I think it was really trying to discuss what the expectations are of liaisons as it relates to the boards, as it relates to, because I think it's changed over time. And my document, I had some of the information in that document, but I don't have it in front of me.
So may I interject here? I have a broad concept here that I'd like to bring back to the board at a later meeting. And you kind of sparked my feelings about this, John, because we have certain roles that the way people participate in committees that need to be fully fleshed out so that everyone understands them. And it goes along with something that I've wanted us to review, which is the appointed boards policy. We have the role of liaisons. We have the role of associate members. We have the role of associate/alternate members. We have ex officio members on boards. And we have, you know, and I'm talking about not just select board appointed boards, but I'm also talking about those members as they relate from other boards and committees. For example, the planning board sends some liaisons out. The finance committee sends some liaisons out. It's all kind of nebulous out there. And so I thought it would be good for the board to review this appointed boards policy and add some clarification to some of these roles, but also if that doesn't work, or create another policy which would discuss the roles of these various types of committee members, because I think it has become a little bit difficult to define some of them. The fact of the matter is, when we appoint members to a board and we have other liaisons or associate members sitting into those boards, associate members, for example, that we have not appointed, because right now our appointed boards policy says that those committees themselves can appoint their own associate members. It changes the tenor and communication within that committee. Even though they may not be voting members, they're influential members. So I just like us to have this discussion and perhaps flesh out some of these roles a little more completely so that we really have a policy about who does what, where, and how. So with that, we can delay this to another meeting, but I'd like us to have a review of this overall policy. And then John can bring more of the specific concerns about liaisons to the board. How does that feel for you, John?
I think that's fine. I think I just think that we need to get clarification so that the committees that we are liaisons to understand what to expect from us. I think people need to understand what the purpose of the liaison actually is and what they can and can't do in a meeting. And I think those were some of the points that I had in my document.
Yes, and I completely agree with you because I think things have there's been some creep going on here in terms of people's participation, and we want everybody to understand what it means to be this kind of a member and that kind of a member and what those positions are and what those roles are on those boards. So if you're all amenable to that, we can table this discussion to a meeting pretty soon, Mike. I'd like to go into more detail about that policy.
Sure, absolutely. And John, I apologize. I don't recall the document or message you sent me. But if you maybe we could talk offline, and if I realized it, I would upload it. I apologize for that.
Okay.
Anybody else have any further discussion about that?
Yeah, so I guess for the documents, when John's whenever Mike is aware of them, if Mike, I think it might be helpful for us if Mike can provide some context of how and if I'm understanding this correctly, John is wanting to discuss the role of the select board being a liaison to a committee, and how if John can provide two alternatives. One is if this is not the way that we do it, and two is if this is the way that we do it, meaning if we have liaisons or we don't, how does that impact your flow of communication and or information to the town administrator? Because I think the select board has made a very deliberate attempt to make the town administrator the primary and or the town administrator's office the primary contact for
different boards and committees.
For boards and committees, and even the public in general, yeah. And yeah.
I mean, Wes, that's actually the basic premise of what I put together. Okay, the fact that we now have a strong town administrator, and what does that actually mean for the role of the liaison and how the liaison works with committees, when and where they go. And basically, if they attend a meeting, what their actual role is in a meeting that they attend. Yeah. I just think we need that to be clarified because we're making a major change by having a strong town administrator. And we have to reinforce that as the town government study supported.
Yeah, and so, but I mean, like, it's not just the town government study. This is how we're choosing to support the town administrator and
exactly
the obligation, or effectively the job that we've sold and the job that's been accepted, I guess is the other part of it.
Right,
and so,
that's right.
At some point, we will technically move away from the town government study committee report because it has been done and things change, and so you'd actually need to issue a new one at some point in time. But I just wanted to get maybe even before Mike is able to see it, if he is aware, like, I don't know how they did it in Foxborough, if the select board had liaisons to different boards and committees, if it worked, if it didn't work, any issues that you kind of see are outlined before you see the proposal, because I also like to have uninfluenced perspectives as well. And if you want, like, you don't have to do it like that. You do it how you want to do it best. Like, we trust you. Like, but I guess I don't want you to capitulate to everything that we're asking for. I want you to be able to advise us as well, because I think that's a good, a very important part of this relationship.
And I think Mike also brings an additional perspective because he's involved in his local community, which is a smaller community similar to Boxborough. So he has the perspective of how liaisons work in a large community and in a small community.
Fair enough. Thank you. I understand a little better now. And again, I apologize for not being prepared for this discussion. I thought I was more of a spectator. Now I understand I'll be a more active participant and better prepared for the next discussion.
It may actually produce better results by accident, so it's not a bad thing.
Right.
Completely agree.
Understood.
Okay, so we're at the point of closing the annual town meeting warrant. Does anyone have anything further they want to add, or do you know, at this point?
Diana, I looked just a minute ago at the packet. I didn't see the definitive list of what are the proposed articles and placeholders. Do we have one? Did I miss it?
No, you didn't miss it, Les. The articles were literally coming in until just before
I figure.
So what I have in front of me is a very extensive list. Some of it is redundant, some of it is abbreviated. But what I'd like to do, if it's helpful, is share my screen and just show you the list. I think I've got probably 60 some odd things on there. Not that we're going to have 60 articles, but these are some of the things that I found both in the capital plan as well as items that have been discussed. So I'll put that
right, because I know I've talked to you about a couple of things, and I'm sure other people have. So
yeah, so I'll go ahead and share my screen, and you let me know if I'm missing anything. Let's see. Hopefully, this is it. Are you seeing an Excel spreadsheet?
We can, yes.
Yes, we are.
And that looks like we're not seeing the top of it at the beginning.
Okay, I'll roll it up then. Okay.
There we go.
So
Wow, it's gonna be a busy meeting.
yes, and I don't expect that these are all going to make it to the warrant, but I didn't want to miss anything. So, I mean, we had stuff coming that scribbled on bar napkins. We had emails. We had all kinds of things. So we've kind of kept a running, but I'll run right down it. The new EMT firefighter, possible schematics for a public safety building, possible IT strategy, what Wes mentioned earlier about cable access. I've misspelled recording, I see. Website update, collective bargaining agreement for fire, if that gets settled, the funding of the OPEB, cyclical and reval for assessor's office, the consultants and engineers for water, per your discussion earlier with Littleton and the other water specialists, so that we have someone representing Boxborough as we prepare that. Something for BRAP, the COLA, which you've already discussed, MS4 permitting from the planning department, fire protective equipment, bulletproof vests, camera storage, space improvements, female locker room, electrical, police and fire connection. I will tell you that is something that you may not be aware of. There was a backfeed of electricity that was detected. I think we need to do something over there.
What's that? What was that related to, Mike? Could you enlighten a little bit more on that one?
Yes. So that's at some point, electricity was fed from one building to the other. And I think it was from police over to fire, and or it may have been the opposite way. And there was, I think it was during one of the storms, there was a backfeed detected, which is something that shouldn't be happening. So they need to modernize that connection so that it's not dangerous. So that's something that they've gotten an estimate on from an electrician, and so we'll work towards that. It may be something that needs to get done before town meeting. I don't know, but I've put it on our list. This one came in today, and that's disposition of the remaining balance in the appropriation for the Douglas Gates building projects. That came in from the business administrator for the school district. The police vehicle.
Mike, excuse me. What does that ABRSD number seem to be from what you can understand?
There was no number attached to it. It was one that came in. They said, we know the time is running short. We want to get a placeholder in.
Okay.
They'll follow with details.
Yep. Thank you.
In fact, I don't even know what that means. I'm not familiar with the project or the.
Was that just a close out an article kind of a thing, or?
That would be my bet or my guess, and or the whatever it was, if they went out for bands or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the gap between that. Oh, Maria.
So they went out to bid and they're coming in under budget. So there may, but at the same time, they're having issues which now may put them over budget. So this is either going to be, how are we going to deal with the extra money we have, which is what I think it's going to be, because they actually do have a pretty good chunk of money left over, but there is some concerns about when taking down the, Eversource refuses to give them the permit for the solar for the parking lots, to put the solar array up in the parking lot. And if that happens, then there's going to be some extra money that needs to be held. But this is because the project's coming in under budget. And the question is, what are we doing with this money? Are we going to give it all back to the towns? Are they going to keep it and do more, put stuff back in the project? So that was the report Gary gave to us at FinCom. So I personally think they should get back to the towns.
How much money are we talking about, Marie?
Diana, I'm not exactly sure, but I think we bonded 117 million. If I'm not mistaken, the project's coming in at about 15 million. But those are draft numbers, for lack of a better term. Okay, don't hold me to it. So it's a couple $1 million, and how do we deal with that? The question is, there's some teachers who have a list of things that say that this is a new school, we need these things, but there is also a push from the towns, I think Acton too, to say, at least our finance committee gave the marching orders to Gary. It also would be great if the money went back to the towns. We bonded 117 million for this project. If it comes in under budget, it should somehow go back. So I think that's what this is about.
Right. Okay.
Okay, the next one down is from your discussion earlier, whether the police vehicle should be put into the warrant. We had a number of things come in from the Community Preservation Committee. One was to give their report and talk about reserves. During Budget Saturday, I was asked to put in a Recreation Commission article for a survey of Recreation Commission property on Summer Road. I guess we don't have plans or borders for that. That's what that's about. And then something for regional housing services. We're still looking into an IT strategy, so a possible intermunicipal agreement agreement with the school for tech support. Bringing back the amendment to the personnel administration plan that Rajan is working on with the personnel board. This is something that also Rajan has been working on, and this would be an article authorizing the select board to renegotiate the cell tower lease with Dish Wireless and Metro PCS up at 7 Mass Ave. Zoning amendment for accessory apartments. This is one that's going to need quite a bit of discussion, and I believe it's going to go to planning board first, and that's acceptance of the following roads as public ways: Joyce Lane, Loring Ave, and McLeod Way. I did have a tour of that development today with our land use director, so I can report to you on that. That's kind of a late breaker, although I guess it's been coming for some number of years, but anyways, it may be on the warrant. They asked for a placeholder though. Possible payment of prior year bills, not for sure on that one yet. Tree protection bylaw, about the tender. That's for a matching grant for that. And then there's another one in there in case we don't get the matching grant. Two things from sustainability, one for green communities, one for specialized building code, and then for planning, a warrant article as discussed at several meetings, one of them including the BLF, which talked about moving to a permanent fall town meeting primarily for zoning. And I think that's something that the planning would like, but others were also interested in that as well. I think this is on, I stuck it in there. I didn't hear directly, but straightening headstones at cemeteries. Not sure about this one. Fire detection system. This is the fire tender that I was talking about, and affiliated hoses. This is the command vehicle for fire, cistern inspections, a number of things for the library, including AV equipment, roofs. And then I've got a whole list that you can see from Public Works. I won't read through all of them, but there's road paving is a significant one, a backhoe, a skid steer, and a mower, all significant ones. This one here, the fuel tanks, is significant. That's the one that I believe I briefed you on, that we may be on our last year of being able to ensure those two 4,000 gallon fuel tanks at the DPW area. They're 37 years old, and we're looking to replace those. A number of things up at Steel Farm, I think to the tune of about 320,000, mostly centered around chimney repair and envelope at the farm. Historic records, scanning, archiving, up at Hager Well chlorine system. And then the last one that I have is a tree health survey. That's what I have. Am I missing anything that you expected to see there?
I don't,
I'm happy with
the
this.
things I was looking for are there, so that's all I can say. I do have a question, Mike. The thing there, where was it? Something about a sustainability thingy,
Yes.
special. Oh, there it is. Sustainability specialized building code. Is that something that sounds like it might be the sustainability committee would like to bring something to the planning board to get them to put on a tweak to the building code? Is that what that's all about?
I don't think so. I think it's something they need to bring to the town. Now, I thought we'd already adopted the stretch code.
We did.
So I'm not exactly sure what this entails. These two came in today, so I need to find out from Francie, and I am meeting with her, I believe Tuesday. She wanted to meet with me. I think it's before the next finance committee meeting, or maybe I indicated that's when I'd like to meet with her. But anyways, I'll get more details from her. I'll try and talk with her tomorrow.
I mean, I'm just thinking ahead that if somebody wants to suggest a change to the building code or zoning, they ought to be certainly keeping the planning board in the loop on that.
Right. I know that Alec has spoken with her, but again, this came in late today, so I don't know exactly exactly what's in mind there, but I'll get more details.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Becky?
Thanks. On Saturday, we talked about an admin for accounting, Mike, and I don't see that on the list. Because we were going to make Liz a full-time
Yes,
accountant.
thank you.
Good call. Thank you,
That's
Becky.
the only thing I noticed missing.
So now it's 61.
I don't know how you do it here exactly, but I would expect that some of these capital items would all go in as one article other than the big bonded ones, but correct me if I'm wrong. So I wouldn't think there'd be 61 articles, but again, I think that I'll probably be meeting soon, I would imagine, with Diana Maria and Gary, so that I get a little better sense of what to expect and be a little better prepared for the capital Saturday.
And Becky, what was the action? It's increasing the hours.
Adding 20 hours. So being full-time for the accounting assistant, where it's not a full-time accountant, but accounting assistant. Then having
Okay, so does anyone have anything further, and how do you feel about closing the warrant tonight?
Um,
I'm good.
one thing, I mean, it came up in the meeting with folks around the water line project. There could be some cost to the town in terms of administering the flow of money. This has not been discussed. It's something I've been thinking about, and it needs to be addressed on both sides, not just us. And maybe that's something that's ripe for including into the IMA in terms of how we take that expense out of the revenue stream or of the betterments. I don't know, but I don't know whether we need a
So we
placeholder
can
there
have
just in
either
case
warrant
we need
or
something.
sense of the meeting. I would say either warrant or sense of the meeting, because at a very minimum, additionally, there is a benefit to the town, whether they realize it or not, especially if they do have the fire hydrants there. It's
Right.
less resources, cleaner water, so now we don't have to do any much maintenance when they hook up to them, and when they start pulling the dredges from the bottom of these cisterns. So for those people who aren't aware, the cistern just sits on a pile of like muddy ass water, or sorry, children, muddy water.
Right.
And
Sure.
if they're pulling that into the truck to then pipe out into the thing, like this is saving us money. And this is 20% of our town's population. So we're most likely to have
Right.
incidents over in that area.
So it seems to me that since we should have some better handle on the costs in the next
Yeah.
couple of months, before the budget is finalized, we could add it to the budget without a warrant.
Possibly.
Well,
You know,
So-
because
We
it's
could
more
have, I think it
administrative
should be a
costs.
warrant article, because at the end of the day, that's also not a referendum on us, but just making sure that the town supports this should there be other unintended consequences in the future
Well, that's,
that we have to.
yeah.
now what about the cost for preparing the IMA? Do we have that?
That's negligible. I'd say
Well, that's a good point, John. I think, and John,
I think that-
Mike
I think the
might
legal
jump in
fees,
here.
right?
There was an article at the February special town meeting. It was one of those catch-all things. There were 3 things in it.
Right.
You remember that one?
Yep.
And one of them was to deal with removal of wells on Harvard Sports Club land and other things related to water in the 495 area. I think that would be fair to tap for even a bit of legal work to begin preparing it, if we don't want to put it all in the legal budget, which is a hurting puppy right now. So I think we have a little to get going, but going forward, I mean, after town meeting, we should have this pretty well in hand, you know, that's the whole idea. So if we need to wait for town meeting to get money to do, we're kind of too late. So I'm hoping and thinking that we have enough on hand in that article to do what needs to be done.
Well, what I'm thinking about, Wes, is that assume that everything goes forward. Littleton makes the approval at their town meeting. The IMA is agreed to. Now there's going to be work that's going to be done. There may be some expenses to Boxborough in the short term that we would recoup from the betterments. And I'm just wondering if we need to make an allowance for something like that.
I think that's a perfectly valid point. Yeah, I mean, there'll be some startup, you know, getting into steady state with this thing, right?
Like, do we turn it into a revolving fund for funding of the fees and stuff like that? But also, like, I also don't want to put it just on the square of those people, right? Because a lot of this stuff has actually been a result of the function of how the majority of the rest of the town has worked. So a lot of the water is not good enough because for some of the Swans or Codman Hill stuff, because we put the transfer station right there. They can't create a new well because of actions that the rest of the town benefits from. And I just want to make sure, like, God, now I sound like a social warrior. I'm sorry. But I just want to make sure that we don't just put all of the stuff on the little person, like not the little person, but the people that are in town and they are contributing through their taxes, through all that stuff, and they just want to have a good life that everybody else in town has. And so I want to make sure that we as a general town don't just push everything on it because we have the majority of people who actually go to town meeting and speak at town meeting. And a lot of these people that are in these condominiums have not come, except for the last one where they had the Harvard Sportsman Club people come and talk, have not historically come to town meeting. And I just want to make sure that we don't disproportionately disadvantage those people for benefits that the town at large has reaped for quite some time.
That's a very fair point. And one of the points I've made over the last several months is that one of the things going on with this whole notion is that we're actually doing something to protect what is a very valuable housing stock resource. I mean, those condominiums are rather unique in this terms of the cost of getting very decent accommodations at a pretty good price. And if that's at risk, the town's at risk, it's for long term. So there is a benefit that flows back to the rest of the town in terms of its economic viability by taking care of that particular problem, to your point.
Okay,
That
so
was all.
do we feel like we'll put it in the list? It's a placeholder for a more detailed discussion one way or the other, but we have it in the list for a warrant article.
Yeah, where that description might need to be, but we have a place to do something.
We have a placeholder. So I think if you have a placeholder, you can always close the warrant,
Yeah.
but you have a placeholder.
Right.
So that's what we're talking about right now, because the details
Right.
are missing in a lot of these warrant articles.
Yeah.
These two, Madam Chair, the two that I have highlighted here, water engineering and legal consulting, specific to an IMA and special legislation, as well as the line below it for administrator for the water project. Those capture what you, as a board, have in mind.
I think, at least from my perspective, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think so.
Okay.
Do we have any further discussion about this? So I move to close the 2023 annual town meeting warrant. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
Any community comments? Okay, let's vote. Les,
Fox eye.
Wes,
Folks,
John,
Markowitz, aye.
and Lupari, aye. Well, we're at the point of board and administrator comments and reports. Mike, do you have anything that you want to tell us first?
I just wanted to thank everyone who had a hand in putting together Budget Saturday, and there were many people, Rajan and Kelly from this office, the department heads specifically, Chief Shefchik, Chief Philip Brown, DPW Director Ed Kukala, as well as Sergeant Bowalek and Captain Jason, I can't pronounce his last name. Malinowski from the fire department, as well as all of the members of the finance committee and the select board, and Kirby for setting us up to be able to do a hybrid meeting, as well as Pajan and the library staff and trustees. I know I'm probably missing people, but I felt like it was a very successful event. We got to discuss a lot. We went a little bit too long, probably 2.5 hours past when we should have. But I also appreciate everyone's patience as I was learning, how Boxborough does Budget Saturday, a new process, a new town with a lot of new hands in the mix. So thank you for all that. I think it was very successful. I came out of the process better informed and better prepared to travel through the rest of the budget process. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. You put a lot of work into it too.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to say that I think it was extremely well presented. We got a lot of work done. I thought it was really an excellent meeting. That having been said, I just want to put this out to the board, whether you all feel that you want to be in person for Budget Saturday, or would you prefer to do it by Zoom. At this point, we have it planned for an in-person meeting with a hybrid component that has certain things that need to be set up and so on and so forth. So I'm suggesting that perhaps we might want to talk about whether we want to have this in a Zoom meeting as opposed to an in-person hybrid meeting. I just wanted to throw it out there and see what the board feels about that.
Well, if my plans unfold the way they've been set to unfold, I will be in Florida at that time, so I'll have to be remote.
Okay, so what about Wes and John? Do you have any preferences on this score?
My preference would be to be in person. I think it's more effective.
This is for I mean, I just want to say that I recognize the work that it takes, and I think that we as a town need to be doing a job to reckon. Just because we say one way or the other, both of them take exceptional, not exceptional, but there's behind the scenes work to make both of them happen. And I don't think that we as a town have done a good job of recognizing the work of people to create these meetings and or these Saturday meetings, and Kelly showing up and literally setting everything up. And like I roll it, like I get to stroll in at like 8:15, and like Kelly's like on her way out, like ripping out of the driveway, like type of deal. But I just, regardless of what is picked, like I have no preference, but I just want to make sure that we recognize the work, and I think we can do a better job of that. One of the topics that I wanted to discuss at a future meeting was how do we not spot awards, but recognition for people's the work and or making people aware of when we say, okay, I'd like this meeting to be recorded. What does that actually entail? And who's actually touching the product before it goes back to the public? And so like, I have no preference one way or the other, so long as there's no greater pull on either BXB-TV and or town resources for one way over the other. And that's
so my feeling is this. I personally am a big fan of Zoom meetings for a lot of reasons, not the least of which right now is the inconvenience of having people come to set up the hybrid meeting. My preference would be when we have in-person meetings that we have the equipment available, we walk in the room, we connect and we turn it on. What this is requiring, it means Kirby comes out or someone comes out, and at this point it's Kirby because he's the one who has this equipment. It is not town equipment. He has to set it up in the room. He has to be there before the next day or that morning to set it all up. We have to have all the department heads who have capital requirements be there present in person. And we have to provide some sort of refreshments, which involves Kelly, et cetera. And so I just think at this moment, until we're set up to do this a little more efficiently, I think we're better off doing a Zoom meeting because it's easy. People, we can get somebody to monitor that meeting. It can be done by one of us. I literally can hit the record button. We don't need the support staff to do all the initial setup. So my preference would be, especially for Budget Saturday, which is simply a question of talking about capital items that we're going to be discussing, that we do it on Zoom. So that's my input. I don't know how you feel. Do you want to, come to a consensus tonight? We don't have an official vote. This is a procedural thing.
Is this our meeting or FinCom's meeting? Because if it's FinCom's meeting, we don't really have a choice.
Well, I don't think it's FinCom's meeting. I think it's a meeting. It's a joint meeting. So, we can choose to be on Zoom, all of us, if we choose to, but I'm trying to limit the resources that are involved. I don't particularly see.
I understand, but I want to make sure if we're being procedural about other things, like as I said earlier, I want to make sure like if we're procedural, we also hang ourselves in that same manner as well.
But I understand. Maria.
It is a joint meeting. My guess is the preference from the FinCom, based on the fact that we are in person currently every week, we'd rather be in person. I honestly believe the discussion is better. I know it's a little bit inconvenient for the department heads, but I think I could speak for the FinCom to say if you're looking for opinions, I think we'd like to be in person. I will say I did go with Kirby the day before to set up the equipment. He did come back with all sorts of extension cords, and he came down that morning to make sure that the owl was working fine. I think this is the second meeting in which we've used the owl, which works fine once it's set up. I don't necessarily think that Kirby needs to be there in the morning to set it up, to turn it on. I think we can certainly, I've done it before. I did it for BLF. I could start it so that Kirby didn't actually have to be there on Saturday. But I think the feeling for the FinCom is we'd rather be in person. If possible, on a hybrid meeting, it works better. The discussions, I think, are better. And with Kelly did a great job with refreshments. We did offer Mike at our meeting that we would bring the refreshments, and he said it was all taken care of. I would still be willing to do that so that Kelly could sleep in or do the stuff with her kids and not have to worry about it. But that's my feeling, given the option. I would rather be in person. I think I speak for the FinCom when I say that.
Okay, given that, maybe we take you up on it, Maria, so we don't have to, utilize Kelly's time. And if you feel comfortable turning on the owl, it still means Kirby has to bring it down the day before.
He does. We would have to meet like we did last time and set it up, which I'm happy to do.
I know
with
that
him as
we
well.
have some ARPA funds, and I think 2 owls and the reluctant equipment were also part of that. And so something that I think I can talk with Mike. Even if we order it, I don't think it'll be in time.
Well, Wes, you and I and Mike are going to meet about this and have a full discussion about this equipment later on. So we're planning on a meeting on that score, because that's the ARPA funds that we
Yeah, no, I know. But so I'm saying, like, that's this way, like, while it is Kirby this time and for the other time as well, I just want to make sure that we start unburdening him, and it's not just we have the owl. And so this is just how it is.
That's why we need to have that conversation, but you and I will
talk. That's
fine. Okay, well, it seems to be then the consensus is in person. Do we have any other reports?
Or just a point of order, I guess. Maybe if there's a way that we could allow the department heads to be remote. I mean, I know that there is some precedence to them being present, but allowing them to present remotely, because none of our department, well, besides Paul, almost none of our department heads are local. And so, like, I know it's like a cost to the town as well to accommodate them for driving out here and all that stuff, and or either time off or whatever, but that's Mike's purview, and I don't know if Mike has a opinion here, and I'd be looking for his honest opinion, even if it's not something that we want to hear.
I mean, I don't mind doing Zoom meeting in my pajama pants. But I'll talk it over with the department heads, and we'll figure out which way we're gonna go.
Okay. But if you could send that out before the FinCom meets and before our next meeting and or something like that, just so that way we can be at least a little bit prepared about one way or the other, if you take a vote or you just do it your way.
So we want to leave this up in the air, is what you're saying, based on, I mean.
That would be my proposal, because I'd like to get feedback, because historically we've also gotten feedback that we don't ask department heads for their opinion, and we just make a decision based on us. And while yes, they do work for the town, I don't always know. Yeah.
Let me make sure I understand. I think, has the decision already been made to do a hybrid meeting?
I think Wes is suggesting we postpone that decision, which I don't disagree with, because I personally have an opinion, but I just.
Well, I guess, let me rephrase this. I don't mind being in person. I don't mind being on Zoom. But feedback that we've gotten is that a lot of times we don't take into account staff perspective, staff effort, and staff preference. And so I don't want to go out here making a dictatorship saying, you come here if you're going to be asking for a thing. Are they looking to be remote? Can they present remotely to people that are in person? And is it going to be sufficient enough, I guess is the best way to put it. And so if we can get their preference of how they wish to present, are they most comfortable presenting in person? Are they most comfortable presenting remotely? Because to me, I've found that the best presentations are when people are most comfortable and they're not like, when comfort is not an issue, the content actually is good, is I guess the best way to put it. And even for myself as well. So when I'm comfortable presenting, whether it's in my house where I'm wearing gym shorts and a sweatshirt that you can't see, or wherever, I'm more comfortable and I am who I am. But so I want to afford that opportunity to other people if they say, you know, I really enjoy in person or I really enjoy this. I have no preference one way or the other, but I'd like to get some staff input into this is my thing.
So is that clear, Mike? You just get it, sort of poll people.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. That's fair.
And then come back to us before, I think, when is Budget Saturday? It's February, correct?
It's like
February
February
4th.
4th.
Yep.
So for me, I'm perfectly comfortable either way, presenting by Zoom or being there in person. Chief Shefchik is here. Would you like to share your thoughts, Chief?
Sure. Like you, either is fine for me. I really don't mind coming in. Either is fine.
Okay.
Coming in is not a problem at all. That's my job, and I am more than happy to come in person if the meetings flow better. I've seen that in my personal experience. Often meetings seem to flow better when people are in the same room, but again, that's your call. But I will certainly be wherever I'm asked to be.
Okay. I have a question for the group, for those who've been part of Capital Saturday before. And that question is, you know, on the list of capital items, you've got things for the library, you've got some clearly things for DPW, but there's a larger group here. So you've got something from cemeteries, something from assessor. Do you normally have all those folks come in, like somebody, you know, with the library roof? I mean, that wouldn't be DPW doing that work. That would be, I'm assuming, either the library director or maybe it would be Gary, because he kind of at this point maintains the capital list. Or would that be me, or would that be somebody from the trustees? I just trying to get a sense.
So from my past experience, it's really just been the main 3 department heads. So police, fire, DPW, and then town hall presents the majority of the other warrant articles and either advocates or disadvocates for them. However, there can be some special cases such as, like, let's say Liberty Square Fields, where it's such a large project that you want the Recreation Commission to be there to advocate. But if it's like $5,000 to paint like a barn or something like that in town, like, you don't really need those people to be there to present that. And it's just kind of like, this is their reasoning, this is what they're saying, and these are the warrant articles.
Okay.
Maria?
And Mike, so with some of the warrant articles you mentioned, like the cemetery, Steel Farm, those are all CPC. So generally CPC does not come to Capital Saturday.
Okay.
But they will come to, you know, I'll have the CPC, particularly Steel Farm, because it's the big one, come to the finance committee meeting one night. The library generally doesn't come unless it's a big project. I would say that we would at least want some information on the roofing project, because that's big. But if it were something smaller, but it's mostly the department heads and the equipment, not as much the little things.
Okay, so basically the same presenters that you had from this past Saturday. So the 2 chiefs, Ed Kukala, Rajan, and myself.
Yep. And I could even, if you didn't want to have the library come on Capital Saturday, they're presenting to us on the 24th. I could actually just ask Peishan to discuss the roofing article, if it makes it easier to get that, you know, to not have the library come on Capital Saturday. Because that's the only article that I think they need to be there for. It's a big article. We'd like to better understand what needs to be done.
Also, just for context, Capital Saturday has been as long, if not longer, than Budget Saturday in the past. Or
it can get long because there's a lot. There's, you know, it depends on how many pieces of equipment. and
And
various.
there's a long warrant.
The list they showed us looks pretty long already.
But assuming that's
It'll be
going to be
consolidated.
whittled down, right? By then, yeah, it'll be not quite as long.
Yeah, some of them were duplicates.
Yeah, there were some duplicates and I guess, yeah, we can look at which ones have either already been done or a duplicate. But if there's other whittling down, I'm just wondering where and when and how does that happen before Capital Saturday?
That meeting you referred to me, you, Diana, and Gary,
Okay.
and then maybe take a look at it there and, do that sooner rather than later and get an idea. Does that make sense?
Yep, fair enough. In the meantime, I'll check with Chief Philip Brown and Ed Kukla as far as their their preference, if they have any.
Okay. Any further reports or discussions?
I'll just say that tomorrow in the building committee's meeting early, 5:30 p.m., to go over the first report out from the context architecture on their review of the space needs analysis. So that's happening.
So,
And then, as I said, on the 19th, we have another water presentation for webinar. It's actually a webinar for basically everybody who lives and works on that other side of town.
correct.
Kirby's been very helpful, although he's been grumpy about it. That's okay. Hi, Kirby.
Okay, we're on watch it.
Okay, so
I torture him.
Just one quick thing on Les's water or the building committee. Please call me ignorant to the committee. About the needs. Where is the best place for people to go and look that up? Is it on the website or are there other places that are?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of your question was?
The needs for, so you said you're getting a report out on the basic, the report for tomorrow's meeting. And I'm just curious as to what those needs were or where I would go to look it up if I was an individual person, because I had some thoughts, which I was actually going to message you about, but
this is for the building committee?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But go ahead. You want to say something, Diana?
No, and Wes was saying, where could you look it up?
Well, you could look on the building committee's website, which has quite a bit of documentation. The report, basically what's going on right now is to take a look at the major report done by HKT and have fresh look at that with independent party to see if it makes sense from their perspective and reanalyze everything. And that defines a number of the needs. There are various documents here and there. I won't claim that there's a coherent narrative that pulls it all together. There are various things that are more important than others. So I would take a look at what's there. And
so is it too late to throw a wrench in this? Like, right? So like, I guess what I'm saying is it too late to throw like a wrench and or like if we have an epiphany and say like, hey, I have an idea for this project, not to like, I know that not all ideas like get picked up and run with, but like saying like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if the fire department building had enough space for the community relations department as well as some senior activity stuff and potential expansion space for the police department to add on a building as well, or those types of needs? Or is that kind of too late? Has the ship already left the harbor?
No, it's not too late. You can come to a building committee meeting or send us a mail or something. If you send me an email with that idea, it'll be correspondence and I'll report it out. Or you could be welcome to come to one of the meetings and, participate. Those ideas have actually come up in the past, so it wouldn't be a surprise.
Well, because I think it's just kind of now, kind of like with the water resources stuff where we literally have like a deluge of new funding. We now have like a deluge of new needs where we have an increased senior population. We have new programming wanting to be done. And if we're building a new building, wouldn't it be great to have a multi-purpose building, not just for...
Well, there's a lot to this, Wes.
I understand. That's why I was asking, is this like bringing like, let's change this to a softball field at town meeting? or is this just like still in the pre-planning stages?
It's very definitely pre-planning. So
Okay.
this space needs assessment is a need, it's specifically the needs about the police and fire department, and whether those numbers make sense and what kind of spaces are needed. And it's all still very much up in the air. So.
By the way, I had a brief conversation with Mike earlier today, and I'm sure you've all had a chance, or hopefully you've had a chance to meet Alec, the new planner. And Mike points out that, and I think other people already knew this, he has some good experience in searching out sources of funds, grants, and so forth, and that there may be some resources that can be tapped to provide funding for public safety buildings. So I think Alec is going to be taking a look at that opportunity.
I'm wondering if we can partner that with funding for other opportunities for either community resource centers or other things, if there are grants in terms of personal well-being, especially coming out of COVID, either through state grants, etc.
Yeah, perhaps.
If not attached to the building in the same across the street or the same parking lot.
Right.
John?
Yeah, so Les, my question is, with your building meeting tomorrow, is there a report that anyone can read prior to that meeting?
Yeah, I sent it out to the committee. I'll send it to you.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any further comments? So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second?
Okay. Les?
Vox, aye.
Wes?
Okay.
John?
Markowitz, aye.
And Lopari, aye. Thank you very much, everybody. It was a very good meeting.